In 1789, Michael Underwood, a British physician who was the first to provide the world with a clinical description of the polio disease, stated,
"The disorder intended here is not noticed by any medical writer within the compass of my reading, or is not so described as to ascertain the disease. It is not a common disorder, I believe."
But little did he and the general public know of the effect that polio would have on humankind, and how much would soon be discovered through the tragedies that happened within the United States. Poliomyelitis, more commonly known as polio, is an infectious disease affecting the nervous system. The disease is highly contagious and spread through human contact, and it is most common in warmer climates. It often results in paralysis or can be fatal, depending on the severity and strength of the virus, and there is no known treatment once someone is infected by poliovirus. Although polio was once extremely common in the United States, with more than 57,000 cases reported in 1952, the creation of the polio vaccine brought the spread to a halt. Dr. Jonas Salk, an American virologist and epidemiologist, along with his team of practicing researchers, began developing an effective polio vaccine. Salk's controversial thinking got him to the answer. Most virologists at the time believed that only a weakened, but not killed virus would effectively immunize the patient. But Salk believed that a killed virus would also be able to effectively immunize the individual, with no risk of the virus growing stronger and eventually infecting them. Using this reasoning, Salk developed a harmless polio vaccine, first testing it on himself and his family. In 1953, Salk finally announced his vaccine after further testing proved that the vaccine was effective. In 1954, the first effective polio vaccine was finally administered throughout the country. The frequency of polio dropped from more than 45,000 cases to less than 1,000 within 2 years. Jonas Salk was hailed a miracle worker. During this same time, Dr. Albert Sabin, a virologist and immunologist, developed another polio vaccine that became another effective form of prevention. Sabin disagreed with Salk's approach of using a non-infectious or killed virus and opted to just use a weaker virus. He created an orally administered vaccine, which is sometimes used in other third world countries today. The contributions of both Jonas Salk and Albert Sabin were equally important and a cause for celebration within the medical community as well as the world abroad. Their contribution, the polio vaccine, is historically significant in the world of medicine because it brought the polio epidemic of the 1950s under control, eventually eliminated most cases of polio in the United States, and was the first effective vaccine containing non-infectious or dead viruses. For these reasons, the polio vaccine can be regarded as one of the most integral developments of modern time. The most widely known reason accounting for the true success of the polio vaccine in American medicine is its ability to bring the polio epidemic of the 1950s under control, mainly credited to how it increased the amount of antibodies against poliovirus in the body of the vaccinated individual. The numbers are a true show of the vaccine's triumph. Focusing on the time period between 1950 and 1954, the overall change in number of cases was about 14 cases per 100,000 people. Experts inferred that the decrease in polio frequency was mainly due to the introduction of the vaccine. To understand the reasoning behind this, it's crucial to be informed of how vaccines work on the biological level.
The secret behind vaccinology is basic trickery. Vaccines contain a weakened bacterium or virus that mimics natural infection, triggering an immune response from the body. The immune system rapidly builds an army of cells designed to attack that specific infection, destroying the weakened invaders before they cause damage. A number of specialized immune system cells remain, called memory cells, that can quickly detect and destroy any later encounters with the disease. It's like target practice for your immune system, and with many vaccines, this immunity lasts for life.
To prove that this concept is responsible for bringing the spread of polio to a halt, specific research was done on how the polio vaccine affects the production of antibodies. In the trial, one group of children was given Salk's inactivated polio vaccine, IPV, and another group was given Sabin's oral polio vaccine, OPV. After about 6 weeks, it was seen that the average number of antibodies produced against polio was 276 in those given IPV and around 325 in those given OPV. These numbers prove the effectiveness of both polio vaccines in creating antibodies to help combat a disease which seemed to take over the entire American population. Particularly during the 1950s, this effect rippled over large populations, resulting in the natural decline of polio cases seen in the U.S. during the last days of the epidemic. Along with impacting the polio epidemic of the 50s, the polio vaccine also lended a helping hand to the eventual elimination of polio in the United States. As the vaccine continued to be administered, the number of cases of polio began to experience a continual drop as expected, but for those who chose not to get vaccinated, the risk of falling ill was still high. In 1979, polio was spread amongst Amish communities due to the fact that vaccinations are often against the interests of the Amish. But since high vaccination levels were seen in the rest of the population, most Americans were safe from contracting polio. This proved to be true when all potentially preventable cases of polio ceased to exist. But if vaccination is not mandatory and a select few choose not to be vaccinated, how can the United States be free of all wild cases of polio? The answer lies in the concept of herd immunity.
Ensuring that your loved ones are fully vaccinated will help protect the whole community, including those that can't be vaccinated. This is called herd immunity. So, when no one is immunized, contagious diseases spread in the community. When some people are immunized, certain diseases can still spread to those that are not protected. When most of the community gets immunized, very few community members will get sick, thanks to herd immunity.
As a large percentage of America became vaccinated, the overall immunity rose and herd immunity played a large role in keeping polio out of the United States. That is why, after the last known outbreak of polio in 1979, no other case has originated in and caused an epidemic in the United States, an accomplishment that American medicine can only credit to the polio vaccine. In addition to being a hero to society, the polio vaccine led to advances in medicine due to the fact that it was the first effective vaccine to contain a non-infectious version of the virus. Before Jonas Salk created the polio vaccine we all know now, many virologists and microbiologists held the strong belief that using only weakened viruses, not dead, would be able to prompt an immune system response. One of those many included OPV creator Albert Sabin. Inactivated vaccines are ones that contain a pathogen that has lost the ability to reproduce due to the intentional use of heat or chemicals. This prevents the virus from having any harmful side effects and rather allows the immune system to recognize and fight against it. As Salk was the first to use an inactivated virus, the rest of the world became aware of how it presented itself with no risk of turning on the individual and harming them, rather than helping them become immune to it. This led to the creation of other non-infectious disease vaccines, such as vaccines for influenza, pertussis, and rabies. All of these diseases, each with the potential to be fatal, are preventable now because of how they take after the inactivated polio vaccine. Today, in addition to the impact it had in the past, the polio vaccine continues to provide the world with protection against one of the world's most feared diseases. Without it, our world may not have seen the potential of science and how far medicine could go to provide people with high-quality health care. In my opinion, the most interesting element in the history of the polio vaccine is its ability to have a lasting impact on not just the United States, but in other countries as well, and this is an influence that can only better and progress medical history. Its legacy will continue to last in medicine, the U.S., and the world beyond.